Hey guys, Ben Painter, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are at Herefordshire Raceway for rounds 4 and 5 of the SRK Championship. Really excited for this one, our second double round of the season. Obviously we had our first one at Formula Fast last time out. We had round 3 and 4 at Formula Fast together, and obviously we've had another 2 rounds as well earlier in the year, so really looking forward to this one. Just coming off a Overtakes day at Clay Pigeon, so footage from that should already be out, and that was a lot of fun. So hoping to come into this one a little bit slower paced, and we're just going to see how we get on. Now before we get into the rest of the footage, if you do enjoy this video, can you please leave a like on the video down below, as I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. But without further ado guys, we're going to jump into whatever footage I pick up along the way, and we'll see how we get on today. With our first heat about to get underway then guys, we were starting in pole position, and the plan for this one was just to break away, hope the guys behind had a little bit of a battle with one another, and we'd be able to race off into the distance and secure 20 points to start the day off perfectly. Obviously, as this was a double round, we wanted to try and kick this off as well as we could. So we haven't actually started a lap officially yet. I checked over my shoulder, Max Thorne was behind us, and he immediately dived down our inside, stealing our first position. When I looked over my shoulder, honestly, he didn't look as if he was as close as he was, and you can see immediately he just capitalised on this, caught me napping, and was able to steal first place from us. Now I make a little bit of a mistake here coming through the hairpins, and honestly I really gutted with that, as it just opened up so much of a gap there, and you can see that Max is now racing away into the distance. We're going to try and keep up with him or close the gap if we can. However, unfortunately, we just weren't able to. You can see he is just bolting away bit by bit through every corner, and we're just losing more and more time. We come across the line our first lap with a 35.985, and we're going to hope we can get this down a little bit more as we go on through the race. So we're taking some nice tight lines here, getting the kart rotated through the double hairpin section, and unfortunately getting a little bit too close to the barrier there, going into sort of the divot on the second hairpin, and that's just causing us to lose a little bit of time there. Again, coming into the last section of the track, just trying to use as much of the track as we can, carry as much momentum through each of the corners as we can, and now we're hoping to try and catch up with Max. But as you can see, we are having to begin to look over our shoulder, as we just weren't really gaining any time, and instead we were just losing time hand over fist here, and no matter how I was driving, it just wasn't really helping. You can see our fastest lap so far at 35.208. I thought I was getting the kart rotated quite well here, and I was getting on the power quite early, and I thought that I was driving with some pretty decent ability, but unfortunately you can just see how much Max has been able to break away. I knew at this point that the kart parity throughout the day was going to be a slight bit of an issue, as I didn't think I was this far off the pace of him, despite him being to the track a lot more than us. So we come across the start finish line once again, our fastest lap so far, and unfortunately, as I just wasn't really checking over my shoulder, we have Robbie Petchy there, who was in third place, who dives up our inside on the exact same corner that Max did, and he's now able to make his way up into second place. I was hoping to try and put him under a bit of pressure here and catch him napping. Was looking for a bit of a switch back there at the second hairpin, but unfortunately it wasn't coming. Trying to open up the corner then under the bridge to look for a sort of gap up the inside, wasn't able to get that either. I thought I had a better run coming up the bridge, but you can see once again our kart's just lacking that little bit of extra power that we needed to really push us forward to make a move on him. So you can see the gaps opening up to him now up ahead, and this made me feel a little bit disheartened, if I'm honest. So we do skip forward in this one to pretty much the end of the race, because that's all that happened really. We just started trundling around. You can see by the end of the heat how far ahead Max and Robbie were both able to get. So despite this, we did still finish in third place, which I wasn't too happy with, but it was still solid points to start off the day. Okay then guys, so after our first heat we did drop from first place to third. However, still pretty happy with this, as it is still a top 3 positions and gives us good points moving into the rest of the day. Our next heat is coming up very soon. We have got a last place start in this one, so I believe we're starting in an 11th place on the inside, so we're going to see what we're able to do with that and see if we're going to be able to move up through the field. So we're going to jump into the footage from that one now, and we'll see how we get on. Moving into our second heat then guys, hoping to try and build on the first heat that we had, obviously moving from first to third, and I don't really like going backwards in any heat, so wanted to try and move our way forward in this one, as we were starting in the very last position in 11th place. Now Unfortunately, off the start line, we do have a little bit of contact with Max as he cuts across in front of us, and that just caused us to lose all our momentum going through the first couple of corners. But luckily for us, we have Wayne Hall here on the left, who just goes in a little bit too hot into the first corner, and that gives us a position up into 10th. Max goes for a huge lunge down the inside of 2 drivers up ahead of us here, and then we look to follow down the inside, and we are actually able to make the double overtake stick as well, and we follow him through up into 8th position, which I was really happy about, making 3 overtakes in the first lap pretty much. And we just wanted to try and get our head down and push forward as much as we could. Obviously, anything is a bonus, as I mentioned, from starting in last place. So we wanted to try and get a top half finish in this one if we could, hoping that the guys up ahead all had a little bit of a battle with one another, and just see if we can capitalise on anything that sort of unfolds. So again, trying to take some nice smooth lines, get the car rotated, maybe slowing the car down a little bit too much through the first hairpin, but we're still taking some decent lines. Got a driver there on the inside of us, but luckily they don't quite have the overspeed to try and go for a move going under the bridge. So we're still in 8th place. Our last lap was obviously a 35.606, and unfortunately, as we come round and over the bridge, we do see Connecticut Racing Team teammate Aaron Mitchell-Begley, who had spun round as he came round the bridge on the brakes. So unfortunately for him, he then saw himself in last place. But up ahead, we're still keeping our eyes forward. We see Max go for another lunge on James Ford up ahead of us. I was hoping to try and follow him through, but unfortunately James blocked it off quite well there. Gives us a little bit of an angry sort of reaction. I was going to wave him back through anyway, as it did give him a little bit of a bump. And now it is my turn to have a little bit of a bump with Neil Durant, who sends up our inside, doesn't quite give us enough room on the exit, and even though he was full lock to the left, we just sort of ran out of room there, and it just caused us to just lose a place. I was a little bit upset about this, as you can see from the hands being thrown around. Not really too much either of us could have done, to be honest. Bit of a racing incident, so clearly at the time I did not think that at all. I was quite annoyed as I would be, but we are now down into 8th position, and sort of the way we had the last lap is now sort of reflecting in our driving. You can see we're making a few mistakes there through the second hairpin, and now we are beginning to drive quite angry in a bid to catch back up to Neil and maybe overtake him later in the race. However, I knew at this point, I could see here that there was no sort of warning up ahead, and I thought that I was going to be stuck in 8th. It was a bit too late in the heat now to try and regain any of the positions that we were sort of on track to get in the top half. So unfortunately we were sort of stuck down here in 8th. You can see making another mistake into the first hairpin there, and again through the second hairpin just making another mistake. Really getting annoyed with ourselves here, letting our head get the better of us, having to defend now 8th position, which is not really something I ever really want to do. Want to always look forward and go for more overtakes, more positions, more points in the day. And as we come down the bridge once again, we do get a saving grace here, as Neil is given a give back position ball, which was a bit of a shame for him, as he was so far ahead now at this point, and I did feel quite bad. But obviously he had to give us the position back, or he was going to get a penalty. As I said, I think it was a little bit of a racing incident watching this one back, but that did move us back up into 7th. And unfortunately we do skip forward once again in this one, as we then held 7th position, and by the end of the race we were catching up to James and Max, who were having a nice battle with one another, but it was a little bit too little too soon. And with that, we're going to jump into the third and final heat of the morning. With our third and final heat, I was hoping to try and push my way forward towards the front of the pack as quickly as possible, in order to sort of pay back some of the other heats that we'd had where we'd just gone backwards, or we'd gone forward but not to the extent that I really wanted to. And we could see straight away off the start we got a pretty bad getaway there, tried to defend the inside going under the bridge, but unfortunately we've leaked a position down into 7th place once again. Now I didn't really want to stay in this position for too long, so you can see I'm trying to take a little bit of a wide line to get a bit of a slingshot coming back down the straight towards the hairpins. I was hoping that James was going to open up the inside for us to try and go for a little bit of a late dive bomb, and again you can see I'm looking for it going into the second hairpin, but I was thinking in the back of my mind at this point that I was just losing time to some of the other guys up ahead as he was defending, and I didn't really want to work with him, so I decided to take a big lunge down the inside into the hairpin before the bridge, and we move ourselves back up into 6th place where we started this heat. So now I knew that I had to get my head down, hope that there was some of the other guys up ahead were just going to have a little bit of a battle with one another, and we'd be able to find our way through. Now for the overtake that we did make, we did in fact receive a warning, or a penalty warning. We didn't actually get a penalty, but we got a warning for just being told it was a little bit too rough. Now I think it was alright, so I decided to do the exact same thing again and again later in this heat, which you will see. So we are in 6th at the moment behind Chris Ball. Now I wanted to chase Chris down, as obviously we failed to do that in the last round at Formula Fast in round 4, where he was able to get the one up on us. So here I wanted to try and get him and just really motor along and try and get some of the other guys as well who are up ahead. Now he drifts a little bit wide here through the first corner, and luckily we're able to have that door open. He tries to squeeze us off, but I instead decide to just keep my nose stuck in there and just forcefully make our way past him up into 5th. Now he was trying to close us in quite well there, but luckily we were able to hold 5th position. Again, the door opens up here on Joshua Davis on the outside, manages to squeeze through once again up into 4th. So we seem to be gaining positions all over the place. This kart was pretty much the best kart that I used throughout the whole day, with the morning and the afternoon. As you can see on the left hand side, we have received another penalty warning in this one, and we have Matt Baker up ahead of us now, and I was looking for a little bit of an overtake here. I try and get him to go quite narrow to look for a switchback. He does just that, and luckily here we try to go for it once again, looking for a better run coming out of the second hairpin. I try and get him to feint to the inside, and then we can see I used the runoff on the right hand side to get a good tight line into the hairpin. Once again we're able to get our kart alongside before the apex and move ourselves up into 3rd place. Really happy with that move, and honestly using the runoff there on the right hand side before the bridge is always really fun to get a nice tight line going into that hairpin. Now we do skip forward once again in this one, as nothing really happened until the end, where you can see we've now began to catch up with Bertie Thomas, who is in 2nd place. Oliver Bayani has sort of ran off in 1st place at the moment, but we are putting in some very decent and consistent laps now at this point. Mid 34-second lap times, our fastest lap time so far 34.489, and our last lap at 34.667, and we're closing in bit by bit. Every lap we're getting closer to him, and we're just trying to see if we can get close enough to try and go for a move before the end of the heat. Now we are coming on to the last lap of the heat now, and I knew that I really had to get my head down if I wanted to minimise this distance. Put my head down, that was perfect timing. If I wanted to get any headway up into 2nd place, we come across the line with our fastest lap so far in this race, a 34.361. I was hoping he was looking over his shoulders at this point to maybe get him to defend a little bit by weaving over the place, but unfortunately just had his head down forward. Here you can see he is looking over his shoulder, but he does have that gap on us. I was hoping to maybe look for him to go defensive here and look for a move coming around the end of the race. Luckily for us, he takes quite a tight line, makes a little bit of a mistake here, and it allows us to close up as we come to the line. But unfortunately on this occasion, unlike when we came to Hereford a couple of weeks ago, we didn't quite steal the position for 2nd. So with that, we're going to jump into a little roundup after the heat.
Okay then guys, so after our 3 heats we did in fact finish in, I believe, 16th position overall, which puts us somewhere in the mid-pack for the B final. We're going to see how we get on in this next one. Obviously there's a lot of tough drivers in this B final, so we're going to see what we can do, hopefully push our way to the front if we can and end up in the A final. But without further ado, we're going to jump into the footage from the final race now and we'll see how we do.
Fourth race of the day then put us in the B final, starting in 5th position in this one, and we get under a bit of a better start than we have had all morning, moving from 5th place pretty quickly through the first couple of corners up into 4th, and now I was hoping that we'd be able to get the power down and try and bring the fight to Chris Ball, who is jetting off in 1st, James Dowden in 2nd, and then we had Bertie Thomas, who we were just racing, in 3rd place as well. So I was hoping that the guys up ahead were going to have a little bit of a battle, we'd be able to really bring the fight to them and maybe even gain a few positions, giving us extra points in the championship and just really cementing ourselves as a pretty solid day compared to last year. Now unfortunately for us, we do give Bertie a little bit of contact on the exit of the corner, and this just leads to us bogging down a little bit coming into the next few corners. And you can see here I'm having to defend already, which is not something that I really wanted to do this early on in the race. Now you can see I'm looking over my shoulder and there's a whole manner of cars right up our gearbox, so I was really worried now at this point that we were in a kart that didn't quite have the pull that we really wanted. And if my memory serves me correct, this is one of the same karts that I used at the beginning of the day, and I knew that it wasn't the best. So with the excuses out of the way, we're just going to drive and see where we're able to end up. And you can see here how much time we've now lost making a mistake through the second hairpin and again just missing the apex on the final hairpin before we come down and over the bridge once again. Still in 4th place, and this lap is going to be nothing to write home about. So we come across the line here with a 35.255, which is one of our slower laps of the day. Quite disappointed with this, and you can see again the car was just really struggling to turn right through the first corner. As we come into the double hairpin section once again, I was really struggling to get the car rotated as much as I had with some of the other cars that I'd used, and you can see I'm having to check over my shoulder so much, as I already knew at this point there was going to be absolutely no chance of catching top 3 drivers unless they all just had an absolute catastrophic event, which I doubt was going to happen, as they were reasonably spaced out themselves as well. Sorry. So we do have Jamie Shimon Chase up behind us, obviously one of our teammates, and as we round out through the first corner once again, we drift quite wide once more, and he actually has his car up the inside. Knew I didn't really want to push him across, as he is one of our teammates, and he just capitalises on it and makes his way past up into 4th. So we're now down in 5th place, and I knew once again that we were going to be in for a bit of trouble. We managed to go side by side there with Seb Miller now, who is obviously a really quick driver, and I knew he was going to be looking to get past us as quickly as possible. So I thought I'd do Jamie a little bit of a solid here, just sort of not backing off, but I was trying to defend a little bit harder than I usually would here. But Seb was having absolutely none of it, as you can see, going into the first corner, bowling down our inside, and he now takes 5th position. So we've made a position and we've leaked 2 so far, so we've lost a position so far in this race, and we're down in 6th, and there just wasn't really too much I could do at this point. I knew that I wasn't really going to have the pace in this car to really re-challenge Seb or keep up with him either, because it just didn't feel, I didn't feel that confident in the car, and my times were clearly displaying the confidence and the lack of ability in this car that I was using. So you can see our fastest lap of the race so far is a 35.0, whereas it's been a low 34 in some other karts, and we come across the line again half a second slower, over half a second slower at 35.619, and that's essentially what happened this race until we had Charlie Summers tried to go up our inside under the bridge, made a little bit of contact there, nothing I could really do, a bit of a racing incident once again, but then we come across the line, nothing happened. I just defended, and honestly it wasn't really a challenge to defend on this track. So we come across the line in 6th, and let's do a bit of an outro.
Okay then guys, so that does in fact bring us to the end of round 5 of the SRK Championship. In the B final was in 16th, moved up to 15th momentarily, and then just lost out to Seb Miller behind us, who was able to make a good move into the first corner, putting us back down into 16th once again. So we did actually end up finishing where we started in 16th position, which pretty happy with considering the second heat, which lost us a whole heap of points. Just a bit of a shame. If we're able to sort of make our way forward, then we may have been on for a bit of a better result. But honestly, really happy with this to finish 16th overall. Obviously, compared to last year, as I've said in many other videos this year, it just was a lot better. So I am actually going to obviously cut this video off here before we jump into another video that is going to show the 6th round. Obviously I want to keep these videos a little bit shorter for you guys rather than slamming it all into one big video and it just being a bit too long. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you have, can you please leave a like on the video down below, as I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys in the next one very soon. Take care.